Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to the world's greatest Bronze Age Spider-Man podcast. Here comes the Spider-Cast. I am your co-host, Michael, and as always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at Spidey Comics from April of 1987. 87 now, right?
That's right, 87, yep. And once again, joining us is G.I. Jolie.
Hello.
Hi.
Oh, and look who it is. It's also Fex Luthor.
Oh, look who it is.
Wow, look at it.
Just
I didn't know you were
take a
here
gander.
until just now. Awesome.
Oh, yeah, said nobody ever.
So anyway,
I didn't hear you come in.
Oh,
Fucking
hello
loud
there.
mouth.
so for the first time since January 27th, it's been way too long, Erica Rock is with us.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks for joining us again. I'm glad we didn't
Thank
scare you
you.
away.
No.
So, since the last time you've been on, have we excited you so much about Spidey comics that you've been doing some reading of your own, or no?
No.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Fair.
Good
First
work. Good
sneakers.
work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I forgot all about it.
That's okay.
You said she was on for Marvel
Spider-Who?
Team Up, so
Ooh.
that's not that's Marvel Team Up's fault.
Well, that's okay because Marvel Team Up was replaced by Web of Spider-Man, and so far there's been 25 issues, and at least 15 of them have been fill-ins. So, Erica, do you know what a fill-in comic is?
I don't.
So basically, in a regular monthly comic, you have a assigned creative team of a writer and an artist, and usually, obviously, the writing takes less time, but the art usually takes like longer, right? And there's a better chance of them missing a deadline. And in that case, they'll have stories kind of just sitting in a drawer ready to go.
Okay.
And this story is probably been sitting in a drawer since 1972, and they just put it up this month just to fill, pages, and then maybe they might go through and change a couple lines just to make it fit in with the rest of the continuity. But that's basically what this is. And for those who don't know, this is written by Larry Lieber, the brother of Stan Lee, whose real name is Stanley Lieber, and it's inked by Vince Colletta. Yeah. So, and Josh is going to tell us what happens in this one.
Sure. It's a real, it's a doozy of a story. So we start off in this alien world. These like aliens, they're talking to this other race of aliens, and they've made a deal where they're going to give a device to them called the Cosmaltigizer, I believe, whatever. It stands for Cosmic Multi-Energizer.
I like how they tell you that too. Yes.
Yeah, like it's very important to know.
Uh-huh.
And apparently, all it really does is it boosts the energy and like the weapons that they're using to become like extremely powerful. So it's essentially a device that's going to make them the most powerful beings in the galaxy. So and in exchange, all of the profit that they get, they're going to give a third back to the people that gave them this machine. So that way they kind of go out and do all their dirty work. Well, one of the dudes there in the meeting is kind of worried. So he runs off and tells another guy named Zalu. He's like an orange guy and everybody else is green, just so you can differentiate between them. Zalu is like the scientist guy of this alien species. So he's kind of like, this isn't good. We're gonna have to do something about this, but I don't know if anything could be really done. So the one alien people, they email they email this machine to the others, but for some reason it's stopped by a satellite on Earth. So it ends up falling to Earth. And Zalu, the orange scientist, good alien, decides that this might be the perfect opportunity to go in and take this away from the people, so that way they don't start taking over. Cuts to a construction site. Guys are talking to each other. There's a guy named Arnie Strunk. He's there talking to some dude, and that's when the machine hits the ground. Everything's kind of weird or whatever. They leave. Cut over to Peter. He's having dinner with Aunt May, and then we see a new character named Harry Gibbs, and he is an investigator or a police officer, and right, or is he a journalist?
No, he's a
He's a
He's a
detective.
detective.
Mm-hmm.
So they put him on the case of this like unidentified object that's landed on Earth. He's kind of like, might be a rock, might be a meteor, might be a broken satellite. I'll go investigate. So Peter says bye to Aunt May on her porch. As he's walking away, we see Strunk, sorry. He's like spying on them and decides he's going to run up the stairs to Aunt May's house and steal her brooch that Uncle Ben gave her. So Peter comes back and chases him down. He's able to, the bad guy's able to get away. Aunt May's understandably really upset about this. So Peter's like, forget this. I'm going after him one way or another. Puts on his Spidey suit and chases him down. He's able to like knock him out and then grab the brooch from him. And just as the detective is showing up to kind of investigate what's going on, Spidey leaves and is like, I'm not dealing with you cops. I'm out. The detective gets into his car, Detective Gibbs, and a drunk driver pushes him off the road, I guess. Peter takes this machine. Peter takes the machine back with him to his apartment, and he's kind of like figuring out what he should do with it. He sees that like it can't be broken with a knife. It like shatters. He thinks maybe it's vibranium or something like that. It starts shaking, and he talks about how the energy is almost alive. It opens up a portal to another dimension, but really what it's showing him is the future for some reason. I don't understand why this machine is doing this, but it sucks Peter in. And he's seeing this war being fought between these two alien species. He's realizing that, like, for some reason they're not interacting with him, and he realizes that this is like just a vision. He wakes up and decides that he's gonna he covers up the machine and he's gonna bring it over to the police station. They're like, listen, is this some sort of joke? Get the hell out of here. We're not dealing with this. So he's like, okay, I guess I'm gonna go bring it to like Fantastic Four or Avengers or some shit. Like, I don't know what to do right now. We cut over to who is this? Some dude, I think.
It's drunk.
Just some drunk dude.
No, Strunk. It's
Strunk.
Is that Strunk?
Yeah, it's him, because he's talking about how Spider-Man beat him up.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're right.
He just looks really different.
Yeah. So Zanja shows up, the big bad guy who's after the machine. He kind of like zaps him, I guess, and then he like beams himself and his like consciousness inside of Skrunk, and he's kind of like walking around as this dude now. We cut back, and the detective's being pulled out of the car. Spider-Man is swinging, I think, to go find somebody else to give this machine to. And when that happens, we see Skrunk, who is again being controlled by Zanja. He stops Spider-Man. He starts punching him. Peter obviously realizes something's wrong, so he's like, I'm outie, bye-bye. Zanja leaves Skrunk's body, so what was the point of all that? He like beams over to where Spider-Man is, and he starts fighting him on the docks. That's when the detective shows up and starts blasting him with a gun. Peter's like trying to throw crates and stuff at him, and nothing's working. Zanja is holding Peter in a bear hug, and then that's when the detective falls to the ground, and it turns out that Zalu, the orange scientist detective, or the alien, was inhabiting his body, and the two aliens fight each other, and Spider-Man kind of helps out, and that's it. Peter saves the day. He gives the machine to Zalu, the orange dude, and he's able to bring the brooch back to Aunt May. The end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll just say quickly, this is obviously, like we said, it's a fill-in. In fact, I actually suspect this is an old story where Spider-Man had his red and blue costume, and they probably just re-inked his costume and just recolored it in to be the black one so it fits in. Now, I didn't think this was a classic issue of Spidey by any stretch, but I do admire the fact that it's a standalone story and it's probably geared more towards kids and definitely feels like a throwback to the 60s, especially considering Larry Lieber wrote it and drew it. It has a very early 1960s feel to it. So on that cheesy, disposable kid story level, I did enjoy it. But I want to know, Erik Rock, what you thought of this issue of Web of Spider-Man.
Well, given that I didn't know it was a standalone, I did enjoy it.
Good.
It made me laugh. There was lots of funny stuff going on. The fact that I did not know why he is in a black suit instead of his blue and red one.
Okay.
Because what universe are we in with this Spider-Man? I don't remember. Right?
Well,
you said it's a standalone, not part of.
Well, it's still part of the story. It just means when it's standalone that you don't have to read any other story to understand what's going on here.
Which is why I liked it, because the other two were a little more confusing on that level for me. Yeah. But I thought it was pretty funny.
So, like, just for the record, do you know about Spider-Man? Like, did you see Spider-Man 3 where he got the black costume and all that? Like, do you know anything about that?
Probably.
Okay. So, really quick, he gets an alien. There's an alien parasite that, like, joins up with him. And then he gets rid of it, but then he gets a cloth spandex version of that costume, and then he's been wearing it ever since. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining that to me.
No problem. So that's good though that you enjoyed it. Did you find it like did it feel like kind of a throwback, like more to like an older comic, or did you just like it for what it was?
Definitely. I went back to the beginning to see what year it was, because I didn't pay attention to that when I started reading it, because I thought it was older.
Yeah.
But I mean, 1987 is kind of old too.
Sure.
But yes, I thought there was lots of funny things about it. The actual, I can't even pronounce what that thing is called, but the machine is ridiculous looking. And there's one point where it looks like a loaf of bread on his back. I don't know. I thought it was
the Cosmoltigizer. Yeah.
Cosmoltigizer.
It was, I even had a hard time reading it. What is that word? Anyway, I did enjoy it.
But yeah, it was like, to me, it was like a Saturday morning cartoon. It was clearly for kids, and it was ridiculous with these aliens just standing in the guy's apartment and Spider-Man having the vision and all that. But I still did enjoy it, just like you did. I thought it was fun. Julie, what did you think of this one?
Oh my God. It was terrifying. It was like it was painful a little bit. All of these books are like painful, strangely. I had a very big dinner before I ate, and maybe that's why I couldn't like focus. But I felt like it was just so weird.
It's definitely weird.
and I've been absent from the last couple episodes, so I thought maybe it was connected to a story, and like I had missed an adventure, but no, I did not. Like, this was just not great.
Yeah.
I like aliens. This is not a good alien story.
No, they were bad aliens. They were ugly too.
Yeah. And like, I couldn't figure out what their motivations are. I still don't really know. Now that we've given them Cosmoltigizer back to the good, quote, good orange alien, I don't understand why they need it.
I don't understand really exactly. I know you said what it does when you described it, but it still doesn't really make any sense.
No. Like, that should be enough information. Like, this is the most powerful device in the whole entire world. It has the power to explode. Like, maybe it has the power to explode planets. No one really knows what it does.
No.
But, like, I shouldn't be, like, still guessing. Or maybe it should be so general that we don't have to guess. But it's also kind of a weird shape for something so powerful.
Yes, it certainly is.
Yeah.
You can say dildo. You can say it.
Yeah, it was weird back in
Yep.
those days. Just like the ultimate nullifier or whatever, that the only thing in the universe that could destroy Galactus looked like a staple remover. It was just the weirdest thing. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think back then when they were drawing, like Jack Kirby would kind of just look around his room and he'd be like, "Oh, look, it's a hairdryer. I'll make that into a spaceship." You know, they just whatever was around, household objects.
Well, they did that in Star Wars, but with physical things. They were just like, "Oh, is that an ice cream maker? Nah, it's a dude running with it. Oh, is that a lady's razor? No, it's a telecommunicator."
Right. Yeah, obviously.
So humans are bound by what we know.
This is true.
So, Bex Luthor, what'd you think of this one? Did you enjoy it?
No.
Okay. All right. On to Josh. Okay.
No, it's not that I didn't. I did like some of it. I like the fact that the guy at the beginning states that he's not a fighter. His people, they travel back in time to discover the past. They don't want to deal with the future. And then it turns out that he did go back in the past on Earth, start a new identity for himself on Earth for 20 years, just lived as this detective man for 20 years so that he could like pop up at the right time and be like, and fight the guy and take the thing. That's fun. My problem is like you've got three new alien races in this comic. You've got Valu, the orange guy. You've got Zanja and the green boys, and then you've got Voldemort on the TV screen, and they all suck. So one of them sucking out of three, fine, but they're all bad designs. The creature of the Black Lagoon is upset, and in fact, Ariana Grande did it better, and I just want to say that because that is going to date this podcast to after Halloween. But if anyone's seen her Halloween costume, she dressed up as the creature from the Black Lagoon, and it's fucking fire. It's way better than this. It's a just very convoluted way of getting a MacGuffin onto Earth to get the aliens onto Earth to punch Spider-Man. So Spider-Man punches them, and then he wins, and the aliens leave. Like, there's a lot of fluff. They introduced this character that not sure if I'm supposed to feel bad that he gets his body taken over by an alien because he sucks. And like his first introduction is him going, "Hey, these guys doing manual labor, they suck, don't they?" And his friend's like, "What's wrong with you?" Like that's the first thing he does. He's like, these schmucks up here, what a bunch of assholes. And the guys up there just working are like, what did we do? I like the little bit of dinner with Aunt May. It is confusing to me because I thought they were like out to dinner, and they're clearly out to dinner. But then I guess Peter's walked her home, but it looks like he's leaving her house from having dinner there. So I was like, confusing. Did they have dinner in the house? But it's like a fancy restaurant is in the house. And then I was just like, wait. So like whenever I have to scroll back and forth between like panels and in a comic, and it's like, it's so not easy to follow. That always bothers me. I'm like, there's so much you could have cut out of this to make some of it not so confusing.
Yeah, also the dialogue between the two of them is like kind of eatable.
Kind of what?
Between Aunt May and his
It's like
go ahead.
Oh, you just the over complimenty, it's kind of creepy, and then the way the super like antiquated dialogue, like, "Hush, dear lady, all my life you've been gentle, kind, and loving. I'm the one who owes thanks, not you." It's like, this is creepy.
I think we've talked about this before, but the way that Peter talks to MA is weird. And like, he can be sweet and very, very loving to his aunt who raised him, but it doesn't need to be like, "Peter, you're being weird."
Yeah. He crosses the line. Yeah, he crosses the line.
It's like, no wonder he can't have like a stable relationship with any women his own age, just because he's in a committed relationship with his aunt.
Josh, you have to give this review. Yeah,
I think even later on too, he says something about how she's like, "This is so expensive, Peter," and he's like, "Hush, I always put money aside to take out ladies like you." And I was just like, okay.
Ew.
Since when, Peter?
Yeah.
There's like 3 pretty ladies who DIY all winter long, like living up above you. You didn't put any money away to do.
Yeah. Anyways.
I remember those ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. They're still around.
Bandy.
I get what the comic was like going for and trying to be. I just didn't think it worked. They didn't do a good job at all for me to care about any of these characters. Like the aliens are just so inconsequential. The orange dude with the eyebrows is just whatever. I don't know. And then like their need to like bring in brand new characters just to have kind of like the twist of them taking over their bodies. It was just like, I don't know. It would have been better if you used an existing character, because they're not like
good
killing
point.
them. They're not killing them, right? Like it would have made sense if they had like somebody on the police force that we already know, or like an investigator or somebody like show up and start tracking him down. And Peter's like, dude, we're friends. Why are you on my tail right now? You know, like get out of here. But they introduced 2 new characters, and I assume they're never coming back. You know what I mean? It's
I don't think so. No.
Two random people. So it's kind of like, yeah, obviously something weird is going on here. So yeah, I think it just didn't work. Not enough time to really get why this, like, what was the point of him taking over Skrunk even? Like, he shows up in his apartment, he takes over his body, he like takes a swing at Peter, and then Peter's like, okay, I'm out of here, bye, and like swings away. So he's like, okay, well, I guess I'm done with this dude, and he just flies out. Like, the only thing he did with the body was walk to find Peter Parker, and then he left the body. It just didn't make any sense. Like, it's not even like, oh, I've got to hide from the public. Nothing. It was just like, and like when he does leave, he turns into like a beam of energy and flies to chase Peter. So it's like,
good point. Yeah.
So it's like, why did you take over this guy if you could have just turned into a beam of light and found him in the first place? Yeah, it just was like, whatever. I don't know.
So would you say this is a good comic for kids or not even for kids?
I mean, I think a kid would enjoy it. I don't think that it being geared towards kids is an excuse for it to be poorly written, though. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, like it could have still, like, small tweaks to the story, it would have improved it, and it still would have been geared towards kids, just because the aliens aren't walking around New York slaughtering people, and it's an adult story. That would not have made this better. Sure. The story itself, I think, is just. I'm
just thinking more of like the absurdity of just like the alien, just the way they look and the visuals and just standing in the apartment. Like, there's no attempt at realism at all, right? That's what I'm more getting at, you know? It's more just like a kid's cartoon where
I guess, but they also don't really play it off for jokes or anything. Like, it's like nothing in this story makes me think, oh, this is like for kids, this issue. Like, it just feels like a bad issue of Web.
Ooh. So I'm going to take it you don't recommend this one then?
No, I don't think I do. The aliens are pretty like uninspired. What they're doing is like convoluted. This like setting up this big MacGuffin for them to fight over that doesn't mean anything at the end of the day is like whatever. So no, I don't.
Okay, Jolie, do you recommend this one?
Nope, terrible.
Yeah. Okay, Becca?
No. And Peter's really poorly written in it too. He's just like, it could be replaced with literally anybody else. Like, that's what pisses me off the most, I think. Yeah, it's a filler issue, so it doesn't matter. But this could be Daredevil. This could be Superman. This could be anybody. It doesn't have to be Peter. Like, he's like, oh, I'm not a science boy. He goes to stab it with a fucking knife. First off, like, cool, good job, Peter. It's metal. His second thought is, well, better take it to the police. Like, dude, you're friends with the Fantastic Four, Doctor Strange, Iron Man. Like, that doesn't pop into his head first. That pops into his head like third.
I love this. Wouldn't have worked if it was regular metal, Peter. Stabbing it would have done nothing, no matter what.
This metal tube stronger than my plastic knife. What could it be? Must be idiot. Like, he's just an idiot. It's just.
And he also, like, I know he's not at the school anymore, but he was literally a science student. He couldn't go back to the lab and be like, hey, listen, like he's gone tons of times as Spider-Man to get stuff tested on at the school he used to go to. That's not something you would think of. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
I gotta go to the police.
There's a great panel where he like puts the whole metal tube under his microscope to look at it, and I'm like, Peter, what's it? It's like, it's the tube. Like, he's just an idiot. Yeah, take it to the lab. You have doctor friends. Oh my god, you know aliens. He knows aliens.
Yeah.
Like, and the cops are like, like they're all making fun of this alien detective. I'm mad about this now, actually. They're all making fun of him. They're like, his head's up in the clouds thinking about aliens. You guys all know aliens are real. Thor is here. Like, aliens exist in this universe.
A dude just turned a building into solid gold.
Yeah, don't you remember that? Then a woman turned it into cauldrons.
I can forgive that because sometimes you have to just, again, pretend that those other stories have not happened, or else it would make the whole reality, like the continuity, fall apart, I think, you know?
But I mean, Spider-Man exists, though.
But
It's true.
it also just doesn't make sense. Like, what was the point of teasing him about it? Like, why? Like, I would agree with you if it was like something to do with the story, but it was not even needed. Like, it was just such a weird thing to do with this character, right?
Well, I think, again, this story was probably sitting in a drawer for 10 years, and they just needed to fill, 22 pages, and so this is what we got. I say...
Sometimes missing a week is better.
Well, back then, Jim Owsley, the editor, he was adamant that he would never miss a deadline. And
what happened to him?
Oh, he was fired the next week. But anyway, okay, so I'm going to say I don't recommend... I recommend this one for fun, but you could easily skip this issue, and there'd be no consequences. Erica, you have the last word. Do you recommend this one?
Oh, wow. Well, there was so much that you guys were talking about. I feel like, as someone who doesn't know a lot about the whole canon, it was easy enough to read because I don't have any of those background assumptions. It was ridiculous and stupid, but I also enjoyed that about it, including the way that Skrunk or whatever guy talked. I thought was absolutely asinine, but I liked that about it. So would I recommend it to people who love Spider-Man based on what you guys are saying? No. But as someone who just has never read a comic book, they might be okay with it.
There you go. If you have no standards, there you go, yeah.
I have 0 standards. That's why you shouldn't have me on here.
No way! Again.
The bar is low for me.
Okay, so there you go, folks. Another fill-in, Web of Spider-Man. Now we're going to jump to Amazing Spider-Man, number 287. And Becca, you're going to summarize this one.
This one's definitely not a fill-in because it's part 4 of the gang war.
Right.
If we could just finish the gang war, that'd be cool.
Only one more to go after this, don't worry.
Yeah, and then there's no consequences for any of this later, right?
We'll see.
Yeah, it was... So... Cover, pretty cool. Spider-Man fighting Daredevil. That's fun. Wonder if that's going to become a misunderstanding later in the issue. Definitely not. So we start the issue off with Peter swinging through New York, and he is really ticked off that Daredevil prank called him and then left him on red on top of the rooftop, which happened like 4 issues ago. I can't remember now, but like basically Matt Murdock called him on his apartment cell phone and was like, meet me at the roof at midnight. So Peter's like, okay. So he goes to the roof, and Daredevil doesn't show up. And now he's like looking for him, I guess. He's like so mad. He's swinging around the city. He finds a crack house, as you do in New York. And it's full of, he notices teenagers. He's like, who's this jerk selling drugs to teenagers? And it turns out it's teenagers selling drugs to teenagers. And this teenager just whips out an AK-47 and starts shooting at Spider-Man. So that's where we're at. And if you think this is going to amount to anything at the end, you're wrong. So Spider-Man kind of fights some kids without like actually hurting them. One kid pulls a knife on Spider-Man. Like, I understand they're kids and they're like having this like drug ring, but even like teenagers who are running a drug ring, I think would be a little excited to see Spider-Man, maybe. So Spider-Man is very upset that he had to destroy this drug bank full of kids because, children shouldn't be doing or selling drugs. So then we switch over to the scene where it looks like Alfredo, did we find out what's Alfredo's name? Like his last name. It's Alfredo Morelli. That's what it is.
Okay.
Alfredo Linguini, I think.
It's Alfredo. It's talking to Richard Fisk, who we now know is the Rose, and his girlfriend, Dina, who I don't think got a last name, so not important.
No, you're right. She doesn't.
Sick.
Look it up.
That's a strong female character right there. She's like Cher. So they're in two separate cars, and they get out of their cars, and they take a walk in the park. And they are, what are they talking about? Oh, they're just talking about the Hobgoblin's betrayal. And man, is Richard ever heartbroken that his boyfriend has dumped him. Mm-hmm. He's super upset about it. He's like, they can't believe it. This homeless guy asks him for money. And then Alfredo gives him his entire Rolex watch because he's like, yeah, don't worry. Other homeless people will see this and kill this man. And then they'll sell that money for drugs, which will then cause them all to overdose and kill them all. Jesus. And I'm like, holy crap. Alfredo!
Thinking ahead, yeah.
Like, Jesus. So then he walks him back to his car, and Richard Fisk's like, are you okay, buddy? Anyway, peace out. So we go back to where Peter is, and he's finished being mad about his date, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, standing him up, and he's gone to have lunch with Aunt May. So they're having some sort of political discussion at the table, and all of a sudden, who's at the door but Matt Murdock? It's Daredevil. So Peter's like, oh, crap, I gotta go. So him and Daredevil get into a taxi, and they argue the entire taxi ride there about how Daredevil basically called Peter to come onto this rooftop to waste his time so he wouldn't show up at the gang war, so he wouldn't get in the way of what was going on and make it worse. Which is kind of funny. So Peter's gets upset about this. He's like, I was just trying to help save innocent lives. And he's like, let me out of the car. And the guy's like, we're on the middle of a bridge. I can't stop and pull over. So Peter's like, fine. Kicks the door of the cab off. And then jumps out. But also Matt tries to grab him. So they both fall out of the car. Peter and Matt Murdock start fighting on a bridge, but to this cab driver, it doesn't look like Spider-Man is punching Daredevil. It looks like this kid is just beating up a blind man on the bridge. So he gets in, and he's like, you're crazy. And he's like, I'm going to bill you for my missing car door. So Peter's just standing on the road. He's like, why did I do that? What's wrong with me? And
I love that face, too.
He's just like, what?
Yeah.
He can't believe that he just did that. It's really funny. So we go back to Alfredo, who is in his sneaky spy outfit, and he is going to, I think it's one of Wilson Fisk's building, because he's trapped it with hidden microphones or something. I don't really know what's going on here, but he's climbing up the building, and he's getting back all of his hidden microphones and microchips and all the fun 80s techie stuff, and he's going to bring it back to the Rose, and Hobgoblin catches him. And it seems like Alfredo recognizes him, so he knows who the Hobgoblin is. And he was like, oh, hey, I thought you quit. And he's like, don't worry about it. I just changed directions. And so he brings him really high up over the water and then just drops him. And Alfredo's like, oh, crap, better dive so I don't break my back. And he makes it out. Good for him. And he seems very concerned that the Hobgoblin has gone to this much of an extent to try to kill him. So then we go back to Peter Parker's apartment, and he's got a knock on the door, and who is it but Ned Leeds? I don't understand the continuity of what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Isn't he dead?
Yes, but that issue happened. Hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened in continuity yet, but
it's been published.
But it's been
published.
It's been published.
So this character, just so Erica knows, is. We read an issue where they died. They were murdered.
Okay.
So when he popped back up, I was like, what is happening? What is I thought Peter was going to be like, whoa, Ned, you're alive. And I was like, whoa, Ned's alive. I don't remember that happening, but it's just the continuity is just off. So
okay.
So he's just not dead yet, which makes sense because the last couple issues, nobody's been upset that Ned's been dead. So now that makes a lot more sense, as Ned hasn't died yet. Because we were all just like, nobody's going to Nobody's going to talk about this, but it's just, okay. The timeline's all just screwy. So he was like, hey, I got a story for you. So then we pop back over to, it looks like Roderick Kingsley's building, where Mary Jane works. And somebody is fighting with Kingsley, and it turns out it's Lance Bannon, the reporter from the Daily Bugle. And he tells Mary Jane, he's like, forget you ever saw me here. And she's like, wow, what a weirdo. So then we go back to Hell's Kitchen in the middle of the night, and we've got a group we got a ragtag bunch of people that I don't know why are there all together. I'm assuming something's been going on in the Daredevil issue, like the Daredevil comics, that have brought these characters together. But the Falcon is here. He's just here.
It's just random, yeah.
But like normally when that happens, it says see issue of Daredevil number whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen. So I'm like, why is the Falcon here? But I'm always happy to see Sam. So Sam's here. Matt's here. I think that's the same cop as before. I'm assuming that's going to be Karen Page, maybe. I think they call her Karen, right? Yeah, they call her. I'm assuming it's probably Karen Page if it's Daredevil. Who knows? Who could?
Yeah,
These are just random people.
Yeah.
One of them's Daredevil, and one of them's the Falcon, and then other people are there, and they're all planning. It looks like they're planning on killing Spider-Man because the Kingpin is coming back to town. And they've got news that the Kingpin's coming back to town. And he's got a big police escort because a lot of people want him dead. And even though he's done a lot of bad things and has killed a lot of people, they don't legally have anything on him, so they can't arrest him. So then we go back to Richard Fisk's apartment, the Rose, and he's talking with Alfredo, who brought him all those, like, bugged microphones or whatever from Kingpin's building. And it turns out he's got some news about Richard's mother, which we know is his mom is sick and in bed and doesn't remember him. But we found out that the arranger, the Kingpin's number one guy, is like drugging her to forget or something like that. So that's fun. So then we go back to the Kingpin showing back up in his New York apartment, and he's got a big police escort, which includes the Falcon for some reason. Mm-hmm. And Red Wing's there. Shout out to the Red Wing cameo.
Oh, yeah.
I really want to know why the Falcon's here. And so then Spider-Man shows up and he's pissed. He's so mad that the Kingpin has left and come back and has started this gang war and all these people are dying and he's going to kick Kingpin's ass. So he goes to fight Kingpin. Kingpin pulls out a big ass gun and shoots him. And Spider-Man's like, you think you can shoot me? I'm as fast as a spider. Whatever that means. And it turns out so he punches Kingpin. It turns out that the Kingpin shot a gun that had some sort of nerve-wracking gas that is causing Peter's spider sense to lose effectiveness. And it turns out that it's not the Kingpin at all. It's actually Daredevil in a big Kingpin fat suit. So they have a tussle, and the Falcon, who did absolutely nothing but fly around a little bit, flies back on the rooftop and it just watches Daredevil fight Spider-Man. So Daredevil rips off the rest of the fat suit. They have a little tussle and they're arguing about who. Well, they're not even arguing. They're both thinking that they know that they're right, but they can see the other person's side. And it's like they should just have a conversation. Just talk it out, boys. I hate men. Come on, just talk your feelings out. So much better. You both understand each other's point. Stop fighting. And then it turns out that one of the police officers who are there for some reason, the Kingpin entourage, they go to shoot Spider-Man with their sniper rifle, and before the bullet can kill Spider-Man, Daredevil grabs his baton and he deflects the bullet because he's just a bamf that way. And it was very impressive, and even he says it was very impressive, and he doesn't mean to show off, but there's no other way to save a man's life from a bullet than to show off. So that finally snaps them all out of it, so they could start talking like actual full-grown adults about each other's point of view. Peter doesn't want people to die. That's totally makes sense. And Daredevil understands that the issue's a little bit more complicated than punch, guy, and gang war. So both sides correct. Stop fighting. So we go back to the real Kingpin, who is now actually getting just took a cab back from vacation, as you do, and is going into the side entrance of his building. And nobody's there because nobody thinks to look at the side entrance, except for Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin shows up, and he's like, hey, Kingpin, I work for you now. Isn't that sick? Also, here's the identity of the Rose in a nice little envelope. And instead of just throwing it away or just whatever, Kingpin's like, burn that envelope. I don't even need it. I know who the Rose is. And then the issue ends.
Pet peeve that Kingpin is always 5 steps ahead of everyone else. I hate that.
To be fair, the Rose is his son. He's allowed to
Yes.
know that.
Okay, fine.
Like his kid, he's allowed to know that his kid is not as smart as he is. As he thinks he is.
I'll just say I did actually enjoy this issue almost all the way through, but that fat suit reveal was ridiculous. That was worse than the Web of Spider-Man aliens, you know? It was just the fact that Spider-Man fought him for like 2 or 3 pages and didn't figure out that it wasn't a real human, that it was just a guy in a suit. It was idiotic, I thought. But otherwise, I thought it was a pretty good issue. I mean, other than the whatever. Actually, we can get into details later, but it was kind of an average issue with some average art, which we'll talk about in a minute. But Erica, I want to know what you thought of this issue.
I liked the visual of this issue. Color-wise, the drawing. I was a little bit lost on the story, but could still, because I hadn't read the other ones, but could still follow along enough. I agree with you about the fat suit thing where he's sticking his fingers in his eyes to rip it apart was kind of weird and insane. But I don't know. I've never read a comic book with the Daredevil in it before. Yep. And overall, I don't know. I enjoyed the story, even though I felt a little bit lost by it.
Did you? So you said you liked the art. I was actually going to ask about the art because this is by a guy named Erik Larsen who went on to draw Spider-Man for about 2 or 3 years. Then he went on to create a character called Savage Dragon, and he's one of the founders of Image. And so his art is kind of known as being, well, I'll just say
Not
a little,
good.
well, amateurish and cartoony and unskilled. But you enjoyed it though.
I yes, because again, my bar is fairly low, and I don't have a lot of experience with it. But I don't know. I liked the way it looked. It looks kind of 70s. I will say I thought the kids selling kids drugs thing was a little bit strange. Like, isn't that always the case? Doesn't always have to be an adult, but also they were really well dressed crackhead kids.
Yes, I noticed like this girl. Yeah, it just
she's got on like a Santa Claus coat. The other kid had on like a really nice scarf and a pair of boots, and I was like, these are well dressed crackhead kids.
I thought so too.
That's what I noticed. And the fight on the bridge was, I don't know, like them falling out of a cab head first. It was, I don't know, that was kind of crazy and funny to me.
It's like one of those weird things about these comics that they're sort of just making it up as they go along. So there's always going to be those weird scenes where you're like, what the hell were they thinking? But they're like, we just got to get it out. Just put it out. I got to say that page where we're introduced to the teenage drug dealers, it is when Spider-Man jumps in and then lands on the ground and then punches. Is that a guy? He punches the guy. The way that he flies through the air is just so poorly done. I don't know. I just think that with all the Image artists, including Rob Liefeld and maybe not Todd McFarlane, but if you look at their early work, I always wonder, how did these guys ever get jobs in the first place? They're just so amateur the way they draw. Like, not to say this art's terrible. Like, the storytelling was pretty clear. I could always tell what was going on, so I'll give it that. But there's just a lot of panels where it just felt like it was a teenager drawing it. That's what I thought anyway. But some of it I liked, yeah.
It took me a while to figure out that it was actually him flying through the air on that page. I was like, what is happening with the weird smaller? Oh, he's flying through the air. Okay, got it.
Yes, yeah, you're right. It's like, yeah, like the proportions change panel to panel. Yeah.
Weird.
G.I. Julie, what did you think of this one?
Do you know what? I didn't like it when I read it. I really liked listening to Becca recap it, though.
She's good at it.
Yeah, there's something exciting about it and funny. I hated the Daredevil Spider-Man fighting the most. I hated the Erik Larsen art second most. And I'm with Erica. This probably benefited with like recoloring. It made it a little more palatable to read visually. The there's a lot of people in this one. Like, there's a lot of people to keep track of. So
Right.
And I'm coming in. I feel like I've missed a few episodes. I'm sorry, but like, I remember reading Daredevil come in, like this whole gang war thing starting, and then now I'm at the quote end of it, and it's not really the end. So
There's still one more. Yeah.
Yeah, it should end. Should end.
It's supposed to, right?
Yeah.
Next one.
Yeah. We'll see. But I appreciate that they're juggling so many subplots. I think that's cool. But like, Erica, just so you know, they've been building up the mystery of the Hobgoblin for like 5 years. And this page, digital page 12, when they show someone in shadow talking to Roderick Kingsley, you're like, oh no, who is this supposed to be? Well, 3 panels later, oh, it's Lance Bannon. Like, not much of a mystery there, is it?
And Lance Bannon, is he?
He's a reporter at the Daily Bugle. I'm just saying they didn't really sustain that mystery for very long. What, 4 panels? I mean, unless they were trying to connect it, because there's been previous issues where people have like walked out on the street, like they've been doing criminal things, then they walk out on the street and Mary Jane sees them and starts talking to them. So that's to tell the reader she knows who it is, but we don't know who it is, right? So maybe they're trying to tell you, oh, this is who that was all along, Lance Bannon. So then you're like, well, maybe he's the Hobgoblin, right? Maybe this other guy's the Hobgoblin, but
yeah, they're not very good at doing mysteries in Spider-Man, as we obviously see, even with the when we're supposed to we're led to believe that Ned Leeds is Hobgoblin, but then the next page it's like, just kidding, we know it's not. Like, there's no time for us to like feel like, ooh, okay. They don't give us enough time to suspect.
You mean Flash Thompson, right? When Flash Thompson was revealed.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
So they don't give us enough time to process anything. And that's kind of the whole theme of this book, I find. Honestly, the only thing that I did like about this comic was actually the beginning with the kids. Like, they normally have Spidey at the beginning, like, to introduce him as a hero. He usually stops some sort of like smaller crime. Shh, 1 sec, I'm doing a podcast. So like, he's usually like going into a warehouse and stopping a drug deal, or he's like busting people that stole a bunch of like shipping containers or something. So like, in this one, again, he kind of stops like a drug dealer, like a drug den, and it's kids, right? So it kind of escalates this whole drug war thing to be like, this is insane now. They're recruiting literal children to participate in this thing. It's getting way too out of hand. So it like kind of set the tone for me to be like, okay, this really is starting to get serious. And then everything else is just a jumbled mess. I don't care about anything else that happens. The stupid bridge scene makes no sense. Like, him punching the cab door off. No normal human can do that. It just doesn't mean, I don't know. It just, yeah, it's very obvious that Peter is like super powered. Later on, we get Alfredo sneaking around with Hobgoblin. Like, I don't remember them knowing each other before now.
Who is Alfredo?
MJ's like boyfriend.
He's the redhead man that talks to the blonde-haired man.
Right. But is he a character that's been in before?
Yes.
A little bit, yeah.
I don't remember him being bad before, though.
He's friends with Kingsley.
Oh.
And they do like shady shit in the background.
Right, but he's never been like, whatever. Anyways.
I'll tell you, Josh, he's only appeared for 4 issues, so he hasn't done much.
Yeah, and he's like, and it's mostly been like him in the cab picking up MJ or like saying goodbye. Like, it's just weird all of a sudden to see Hobgoblin trying to murder this dude, and for what? This whole like subplot with these random people and the Falcon, like nothing really connects together.
True.
Why did Daredevil dress in the Kingpin suit? Was that explained?
No. Oh, well, I mean, you mean why him as opposed to someone else, or why?
Why did he do it?
Well, to distract Spider-Man so that
to keep him
Spider-Man,
away.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
It's so stupid. Like, it just does not make any sense at all.
I actually think it's a good idea. Like, it's a good idea to trick Spider-Man.
To trick Spider-Man,
it's a
right?
Stupid thing to have him in the fat suit. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's just.
Just talk to each other, people. Oh my god.
Yeah, and then the revelation of him finding out, it was just that, oh my god, you stepped into the light, which he actually didn't. It was just something that Peter said. Oh, and now that I could see you more clearly in the light, I know that you're fake, and he rips off the thing. Like, it's just so stupid. Nothing happens in this issue that changes this crime war, this war that's going on in the streets. Nothing. Sorry, I should have name dropped the gang war, but it doesn't make any sense. Like, nothing changes. Nothing that anybody does in this issue actually matters. If Daredevil would have just been like, listen, we got to stay out of the way. I don't know. It's just.
Well, exactly what Becca said. Talk about it.
Yeah.
Instead of fighting each other.
It's really dumb.
You have his phone number. Just call him.
That's one of the weaknesses of Marvel comics of this time is they always have what's that called? Miscommunication, so that the two heroes can fight each other. It's really frustrating, but you kind of just got to accept it's going to happen.
It's called Batman versus Superman syndrome.
Yeah.
So yeah,
still happens to this day.
I disliked this one more than the Web of Spider-Man this week.
Really?
Because to me, it was the same amount, if not a little bit more, of just convoluted nothingness. Right. But at least the Web of Spider-Man was like campy and fun and readable. Sure, where this is like trying to keep itself, like trying to be too serious. It's trying to be more than it actually is. And I think just trying to juggle too many things to be this like this huge story with multiple storylines going on, and it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm. Bex Luthor. What do you think?
Just I imagine being a kid in the 80s and you just read the previous issue of Amazing, where you find out that the Rose is Wilson Fisk's son, Richard Fisk. And you're like, oh crap, that's cool. Like, he's trying to like scheme around this whole gang war. Finally, it's getting interesting. And we said last week, I think we were talking about the last issue, or 2 weeks ago, how that issue was actually really well written. It was really well drawn. And we were like, oh, this is like a gem in the Amazing one. And then you pick this one up. And you're excited to see the next part of the gang war. And it's just an absolute mess of pointless wasting your time. Mm-hmm. And like Daredevil's on the cover and you're like, sick. We're going to find out what happened to Daredevil when he didn't show up on that rooftop. And it was just, we're just pranking him the whole time. It's just like such a kick in the face. I want to follow Richard Fisk more. I want to see what's going on. I don't care about Alfredo. Mm-hmm. Who cares about this Alfredo nonsense? Like, why did he need Alfredo to bug his dad's building? Just like bug it yourself. Or I just wanted more of what the last issue was, and this was absolutely none of that. And then like the fight with Daredevil, it's such a long way for them to be like, I understand your point, even if I don't agree with you at the end. Like, why do we need 6 pages of punching a fat suit Daredevil for that? I just want to know why the Falcon's there too. Like, that's like, what's going on in Daredevil right now? Give me a little annotation so I can like, because I love the Falcon. If the Falcon was hanging out with Daredevil and Karen Page and whoever else these two people are, I want to know about it. Like, I want to read that now. I love Falcon and Red Wing's there, but like, there's nothing to be like, also Sam Wilson's here, shout out, like, and they just have this big gun. It's just like it's just a big mesh of characters, and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of people in here, but half of them don't need to be. I don't think Dina ever comes back. Like, I don't think she's a character after this like gang war thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'll double check that, but I think you're right.
So like, she doesn't matter. The whole like Kingpin showing back up to New York is the only thing in this issue that actually like brings like is plot moving forward, and it's the last page.
Yeah.
And he shows back up And it's not anything about where he was, if he knows what's been going on in the town, if he has a plan. It's just, hey, Hobgoblin, I already know who my son is. Thanks, bye. Like, cool. That this could have been the last page of the last issue, and then the next issue could have been something else.
Good point. Good point.
And the art downgrade is noticeable. Apparently, this is what's his face's first published work. So
Erik Larsen.
Yeah, good for you. Seen better.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't do better. I'm not an artist. I just read a lot of comic books, and it's just the first page at least is interesting, like the splash page with like the lightning and the rain, and then it's just immediately not. Like, I keep looking back at that panel of Spider-Man jumping over the kid with the AK-47 gun, and I'm like, what is this? Or like even the previous panel where he's busting in the the boarded up window, and it's an explosion behind. Like, what's happening?
Yeah.
What is all this? Is this wind coming in? Like, what's going on?
Good point.
The staging and the layout is really not well done in this one. I mean, going off what you were saying too, Bex, it's like he's smashing through the window, and then his spider senses go off, and then somehow he's now to the left of that window, and then jumping and doing a twirl, and it looks like he's gonna like land upside down on top of these guys, but then is like flipped the other way in the next panel.
Oh yeah,
and like standing straight up essentially. Like, it just, the action doesn't make sense. And
like I said, like, amateur. Just I'm surprised Marvel would even hire him, to be honest. But that's the way art was going. Yeah.
And then if you keep going down, Alfredo and Richard Fisk are in their cars talking. They presumably get out of their cars to keep talking. They're talking outside of their cars. They run into a homeless man. Alfredo's talking to the homeless man, and then Richard Fisk is back in his car. I'm like, did they go for a walk? Or is they just still, like, how did he get back in his car?
Yeah.
Is he talking to him? What's happening? Like, I don't know what's going on. I can't follow the framework. It's bad. The story's bad. When Peter and Matt are in the cab, they're talking, and then it gets flipped, and like Peter kicks the door out, but it looks like maybe Matt was on it.
That's a good point. Even when they're riding in the car together, look at the perspective. It doesn't look like they're in a car. It looks like they're on a TV set behind the cab driver. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Wow. It's even worse the more I look at it. The only thing I'll say is I do agree the recoloring of the computer coloring at least makes it appealing to my eyes, but it's not actually good pencils.
True.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, not my favorite, which is a shame because I've actually been enjoying the gang war. I think it's funny. And like the Kingpin's gone, so everyone's just horsing around, doesn't know what to do. I think
horsing around, yeah.
just screw it around. Might go crazy. Not sure. Just feeling silly. I like what's been happening. I think it's an interesting story. And it's just like, cool. What a waste of an issue. And Daredevil's here, and they don't even do anything. It's dumb. I do like how Peter whips and webs Daredevil's eyes. He's like, that'll teach him, and then it's just like, wait, he's blind. That's funny.
Whoops. So I'm gonna take it you don't recommend this issue, Becca.
It's like, it was quick to read, even though I was like very jumbled. So probably not. Just, you could honestly skip this and probably go to the finale of the gang war.
Well, we'll find out if you need to read that soon.
We'll find out.
Erica, do you recommend this issue?
Not particularly. I felt a little bit lost, but then again, that's usually the case when I'm reading these comic books. But yeah, I agree. I haven't read the other ones, but I don't think anything in this furthered any sort of plot that it clearly is part of. So no, I think I would not recommend this. There's some goofy shit happening in this. This Alfredo, I don't even know what Alfredo's doing in this entire thing when he's in trying to get the bugs, and not like actual bugs, but the recording devices. Yeah, I just found all of that sort of confusing, and it jumped around a lot. So yeah, no.
All right, Josh, you recommend this one?
No, I going off like kind of echoing what Becca said earlier too, especially not after last week's issue where it was like one of the better stories we have read on the podcast. Going from that to this, it was like even more of a jump to what the heck is going on. There wasn't much that I enjoyed reading from this one, so I would not recommend it.
G.I. Jolie?
Nope, it's terrible. It's not good. Sorry. That's all I have to say.
That's it.
Not good.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? Like, again, going back to the web, at least I could imagine myself reading the web of Spider-Man issue again. But this one, there's nothing in it. Maybe a couple scenes, but there's so much junk that it just makes it hard to get through the whole issue.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more it is starting to piss me off, which is weird.
Well, more stuff comes up, right? You're like noticing things in a different way.
Yeah.
In a different, shittier way.
Right? Like, when we're talking, okay, maybe I do have more to say. When Alfredo or Fisk is in the car, suddenly I realize they have cell phones. And, like, the size of the cell phone it bothers me. Like, the size of Richard's cell phone. And the fact that how far did they walk? She had to call him on the car phone. Also, there's a car phone.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
It's just there's just like 12 avenues of ridiculousness in here. And like, they're all terrible. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, like you could easily skip this one. I don't imagine myself ever reading it again. Maybe a couple scenes, but that's it. But overall, a disappointment. Let's hope the Gang War Part 5 wraps it all up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope so.
Maybe not.
Sure.
But before we can talk about that, that's next week. We still got to review Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man number 125.
Oh my God.
Yes. Actually, my favorite of the bunch, Wrecking Havoc. This is featuring the all-new Spider-Woman, Erica Rock. Did you know that there was also a Spider-Woman?
No, I did not.
Did you know that there was 5 different Spider-Women?
No. I have seen the movie Into the Spider-Verse and knew that there were other types of Spider-Man. I just didn't know there was a bunch of Spider-Women.
Yeah, so long story short, there was one who was completely unrelated to Spider-Man, didn't even know Spider-Man existed. She lived in like San Francisco. Then she retired, and now this is the second Spider-Woman, and she actually had the black costume first, and Spider-Man subconsciously got the idea from her. Isn't that cool?
He did say he copied her. Yeah.
Right.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, so anyway, this is kind of a fill-in again. Spider-Man is going through a rough time at this point. But
we are left on a cliffhanger though.
On this one? Oh yeah,
so it's going to continue. So
it's not the difference between a fill-in and this is a fill-in team, but it was done new because you can tell because the story fits into continuity. But we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, it also kind of feels like maybe an advertisement for other characters. Like this feels the most like a Marvel team up.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. So basically, this issue starts out with a classic kind of generic scene between Peter Parker and J. Jonah Jameson. JJJ is complaining about Spider-Man. Now he's complaining about Spider-Woman. Blah, blah, blah. As you'd expect, he sends him out to get pictures. And then we cut over to Spider-Man talking about Spider-Woman. And we kind of flash back to Secret Wars, which is Becca's favorite story. And Spider-Woman is fighting the Absorbing Man and blah, blah, blah. Then we cut over to this. It's kind of a weird splash page. Usually you'd have something like this at the beginning of the book, but this splash page is one of those abstract ones where you can only see the white spider symbol and spider eyes. And then the next page, it's revealed to be Spider-Woman crawling into what is this? Just a building? I don't even know. She's crawling into a building to steal. Oh, yeah, it's a computer disk,
Computer
right?
lab or something? Yeah.
And then we see this cool shot of the wrecking crew who have just come through and beat up all of these guards, and they're kind of like making their way to get, I guess, the same thing that she is. And so they're kind of, the Wrecker is the leader of the wrecking crew, and he's telling everybody what to do, but then Thunderball is secretly conspiring to, take over leadership. So Thunderball goes into a different room, and he has found this disc, but then Spider-Woman snatches it out of his hands, and then she tries to get away, but then Wrecker, like they all, just so you know, Erica, they all have little tools that can all do different things, and so he uses his crowbar to kind of like smash the ceiling, and she then fights them off and gets away, and it's a pretty good fight actually. I like it. And then she gets knocked out, and then the more of these guards come in, and once she comes to her senses, in that little scene where they have like the little cartoon things showing that she's been unconscious, she like leaps out of the building and then just takes off, right? And then we cut over to her going home, and see, this is so cool. We find out, look at this, Spider-Woman has a daughter. She's a single mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is, who is this again? Is this the babysitter, or is this her boyfriend? Oh, is that a woman or man?
It's a crabby lady.
Oh yeah, it's a crabby lady. Okay. So she's like checking in on her daughter, and then the phone rings and wakes her daughter up, and then she makes a phone call to, this is the girl's father, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They look similar.
Yeah, you're right. They do look similar. They're exactly the same. And so she's having kind of an argument with her, I guess her ex-husband, and then she's chatting it up with her daughter or whatever. And then we have a flashback that I skipped. I didn't even read because I know all this. But, okay, she was in Secret Wars. She fought a bunch of people. She fought, who is this guy? The green guy. What's his name?
Green guy.
Oh, Green something. I don't know what his name is. And then then she's with Iron Man fighting the Crimson Dynamo and some other guy. And then we flash back to her daughter, and then we flash over to, she's like, so I turned myself in and took the deal that Freedom Force's boss, Val Cooper, had relayed to me through Iron Man. So then she joined Freedom Force, which was actually the former Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, right? So this is all this stuff that's been going on. And then she's like, it was the only deal I could get. It meant there was a chance I could get back together with Rachel relatively soon. So it's all about her daughter. So it's kind of cool. I like it. Mm-hmm. So let me cut over to Peter Parker, getting to, again, a classic, almost generic Peter Parker scene, getting into an argument with his landlady about the rent. He's late or whatever. So then he goes in and he gets revenge on her by wasting all her hot water, which I thought was cool. And then we cut, and then we cut over to the wrecking crew in one of their secret hideouts, right? And they're talking about what's going on, and then look at this. The wrecker calls to his mother, so it's all about relationships. See, he calls to his mother, and he's trying to keep a good relationship with his sick mother, and he regrets not being closer to her and all this other stuff. Meanwhile, Thunderball is plotting his how he's going to take over leadership, and he's flashing back to a previous Spider-Man story or whatever. And then I love this scene where he's like, the Wrecker is the only one of my teammates who can pose any threat to me. The other two's ambitions are so petty and mundane. And we see a picture of the one guy fantasizing about being with a girl, and the other one's fantasizing about, I guess, betting on a boxing match. It's kind of funny. And they're both playing cards and smoking and drinking beer. It's kind of funny. So anyway, now this is a very weird transition, because what happens is we're in with the wrecking crew, but then we cut to the next scene, and Spider-Woman and her secret identity. What's her secret identity again? I don't remember.
Julia Carpenter.
Julia Carpenter. She's walking along, and then all of a sudden she reads the newspaper that the wrecking crew have been arrested. So here's the crazy thing. This is for Erica. In between those two panels, an entire 5-part storyline in Avengers has taken place, and I've read that story, and this is showing the wrecking crew getting arrested, but they don't even, usually in a Marvel comic, they'll tell you, like, you have to read Avengers 287, but they don't do that. You just have to go, I guess that's what happened. I don't know. But yeah, it was a huge storyline, and so obviously it's been like a little while in between those two panels. So now she's freaking out because they have the disc she wants, right? Is that why?
Yeah, the Wrecker has the disc.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The one guy who didn't get caught.
Yeah, I'll never be able to get them in prison. I hope the disc wasn't destroyed while they were all battling the Avengers. And even if the Wrecker has it, he probably left town by now. I'll never find it. So then she calls, who's this guy again? Clemson. This is the guy that
I'm in.
wanted the disc. Yeah, this is the guy that told her to get the disc. It's Clemson, isn't it?
Clemson.
Yeah, I think it's Clemson.
Shout out.
So then he's like, it wasn't found on any of the captured crew, which means that the wrecker still has it. I believe he's still in New York. So now she's got to go get it from the wrecker. So then we see her climbing along like a water tower, and then she sees someone else. Who could that be? Oh, look, it's the wrecker. She recognizes him in his street clothes. It's Dirk Garthwaite, the wrecker. And so she's following him along. He goes into his apartment, and he changes into his costume. She breaks in, and then gets immediately thrown out, but then she swings back around, and there's this cool fight scene. He's like knocking over a electrical pole or whatever, fighting. She falls through the ceiling of a building, the roof of a building, because he smashes it and she falls through. Meanwhile, we cut over to Peter Parker who's riding in a correctly drawn taxi cab this time. But he sneaks out and then just swings away because he sees all the commotion. So then he joins the fray. But at first, he's fighting Spider-Woman because he doesn't know what's going on. He starts taking pictures of her. She gets knocked out, and then her mask falls off. And his first instinct is to take a picture of her. And then, you know what? Should we pause? Yeah, we'll pause.
I'm back on.
Oh.
Can you hear? It kicked me off, so I didn't know if you knew that.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay. No problem.
Sorry, I don't know why I'm having such technical difficulties.
I'll go back to the beginning. Okay, page 1. No, I'm just so anyway, so then Spider-Man's taking pictures of Julia Carpenter with her mask off, and then he's like, "Oh, this is my big chance. She's a criminal. The records show it. So how come I feel so bad doing this?" So now he's having second thoughts. But behind him comes the wrecker, knocks over some rubble, but then Julia Carpenter's Spider-Woman, she's like, "Oh, I gotta help Spidey." So then she fights back, but then Wrecker knocks her over. And then he, all of a sudden the police are outside. "This is the police. We know you're up there. Don't force us to use our heavy artillery." So then he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna get out of here." So he takes off, smashes through the wall, takes off. Spider-Woman's knocked out. So Spidey picks her up, swings away. The police shoot at them. They look at this, man and a woman. They talk it out. They figure out the problems, right? Spider-Man decides, you know what? I feel guilty. I'm going to expose this film. So then he exposes the film. So now he's not going to make any money from revealing Spider-Woman's secret identity. But then just at the last second, the wrecker's like, "There you are." What? He smashes through the wall and he's like, "I got the disc back from the web lady." But even though its case looked okay, the disc itself was destroyed. So the disc is destroyed. Now he's pissed. So he's like, "I'm going to finish what I started and kill you both." And that's the end. And yeah, I gotta say, yes, it's kind of a fill-in, and there are some hokey moments, and I don't necessarily like that cliffhanger. But other than that, I surprisingly really enjoyed this issue, and it was my favorite issue of the month. Erica, what did you think of this one?
I liked this one as well, because I didn't know there was a female spider person, and and it had a story that I could easily follow, and it filled in gaps for me. I know, like when you said about the she reads the newspaper, and there's that whole story that went on in 5 episodes, but it explained it for me. So as someone who has no frame of reference, this one kind of was the best to read without being super confused, other than the fact that I didn't know that there was a female Spider-Woman. But yeah, I thought it was all encompassing. Like, it told the story, and I didn't have to guess at stuff. I got all the references.
Right.
So I enjoyed it. And I did like this Wrecking Crew. I've never heard of them, but I kind of liked them. They're a bit ridiculous. I mean, a little abusive to a woman, but she held her own, Right. Yeah. So I enjoyed it.
Okay. So Bex Luthor, what'd you think?
Yeah, no, I liked it too. It was okay. It wasn't like, look, we just read 2 bad issues of Spider-Man. So this one I was like, "Oh, Julia Carpenter's back. I like her. She was the only good part of Secret Wars." The only good part.
In case Jim Shooter's listening, yes.
Yeah. Hey, Jim Shooter, it's your pal, Bex Luthor. No, he would never speak to me. No, I did enjoy it. I like Julia Carpenter as a character, like single mom, does everything, like got screwed over, clearly. Is just trying to do her best for her kid. I like all that. I still like Julia Carpenter. I think she's Madam Web now. So that's fun. But, you know, the Wrecking Crew is always fun, I think. I think they're a fun group of dopes because, like, and it's like, it was so upsetting actually to read that one of them was going to betray them. I was like, and then the other one was like, these boys are my only family. I was like, oh, actually, don't betray him. He's your family. Like, I got kind of like, oh, these boys, that's all they've got, even though they're criminals. I think it's sweet. But yeah, just like, you know, the best issues of Peter Parker are the ones that don't focus on Peter Parker. Which is unfortunate. No, it was okay. It wasn't anything like fancy. There wasn't any like moments where I was like, that's dope. Like that's Peter Parker to a T. It was just mostly fighting and mostly flashback of not even Spider-Woman's origin, but like kind of what she's been up to since Secret Wars, if you haven't been following her. Because like she got her powers before Secret Wars, like just before Secret Wars, right? I don't have too much to say. I had a lot to say in the other one because it made me mad. This one didn't make me mad, but it also didn't make me feel that much, which is
yeah, like there's nothing that stood out as being great, but even like, you know, we just had two issues where there was all these subplots and all this confusion and all this crap, and then you go to like page 5 of Spider-Woman just crawling into the building. Now, first of all, this art is by Jim Mooney, who's a veteran of Marvel and DC since the 1950s. I love his art. It's so clean and so perfect. And I just look at her crawling in, and I'm like, oh, look at this. There's not all this crap going on that I have to sort through to figure out what's going on. And even though what's going on is not spectacular, at least it's simple and easy to follow. And then we have this great splash page sort of the Wrecking Crew coming in. We have all the little guys in the background, and the art is so clean and so simple and so perfect. And that's, I think, what I liked about it is maybe it wasn't a classic issue, but it was like it wasn't like a classic issue. Like it wasn't a great issue, but it felt classic. That's what I mean, you know?
Yeah, but if the par is it wasn't bad, that doesn't mean it's good.
No, true. but I did appreciate that they added the extra dimension of showing her personal life and showing his personal life, you know? It just, instead of having a gratuitous fight scene, which there was still a fight scene, but instead of having like, let's have 3 more fight scenes, at least we got a little bit of actual character development, I thought.
Yeah, I did. I understood their lives, and
there you go.
Especially
know
for
a little more.
Especially as far as bad guys go, like it's not very often where we get like an actually good backstory for bad guys that are kind of like a one-off throwaway. Nobody, and I know the Wreckers do come back often, but they really feel like inconsequential, or they would have at least if they didn't kind of show them in their personal lives and like their relationship with each other, and that definitely elevates it to another level of it being like a pretty good comic. Like again, because again, it's not like a fantastic story. No. It's pretty average. And I again, like everybody else has said, I liked it for its simplicity. This is how you do like a goofy story, or you know, something without being complex and convoluted and just like bringing things in for no reason. They bring in these wreckers and they set up their relationship with each other. They have a clear goal of getting this disc, and by the end of it, he shows up again. Peter has a clear reason to be there. He was sent specifically to find this other Spider-Woman, and JJ has a reason to send Peter because he's constantly taking pictures of Spider-Man. So why wouldn't he be good at tracking her down as well, like another Spider person? So like everything in this comic has a clear path and direction that it's going down, and it does a good job of bringing us there. It's just unfortunate that like maybe it's not super interesting, everything that's happening, or like revolutionary, but at least it's like solid and well told. And there were no parts where I was like rolling my eyes, like, come on, let's go, let's get out of here.
Right.
The one like, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
The one really like negative thing I'd say about it is the that was 3 years ago. Anyways, like that's the only thing we get about like the time skip is like that was 3 days ago now, not even years. Sorry. Julia Carpenter, Spider-Woman arrives in Manhattan. It's just like, oh, okay. Well, why is this like weird like time skip happening?
What's the point of being specific about it? Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
G.I. Jolie.
The only thing that didn't sit well with me was the time skipping, because I didn't notice it half the time, and I had to flip backwards, which earlier was mentioned as a pet peeve. If I have to skip around looking for clues as to why I don't understand the story completely, especially since like I was fully alert and caffeinated for the reading of this one. Though I will say it wasn't as terrible as the first two. I was very interested in this Julia Carpenter, and while I enjoyed her little backstory, I wanted there to be way more, other than the weird flashback to Secret Wars. Because I was like, ooh, this is the first time I've read a flashback and been like, yes, I need this. And then I was reading it and I was like, oh, but I don't need this. Like, not this one.
Yeah.
Like something else. Yeah. Like the parts where she's, concerned about herself not being a good enough present mother, and then her circumstances where she has to take those deals from this guy that Iron Man introduced her to. So like that's the flashback I needed. I didn't need to know that she was part of C. Like they gave everything in those that one page, and they usually spend like 3 pages doing flashbacks, but they don't. Also, I think Becca said it. The books where Peter isn't the main character are like the best ones, which shouldn't be happening. I find that yes, that's true with this one, and he's much less whiny. Like I feel like we've had to read other encounters with Mrs. Muggins, and they've been way shittier than this one. Like this one was just like comedic. It was to the point, and it had to do. It motivated him. Like he needed money, 4 months worth of rent, which means he's motivated to take those photos, right? So it had to do with the story rather than just like him complaining about the same Peter Parker bullshit.
So yeah, in this issue, that's the thing that's what's so refreshing about a sort of a standalone issue, is that everything should fit together. Obviously, we know that there'll be tiny little subplots that are going to come back, but at least for the most part, you could understand everything that was going on, and everything kind of made sense, I mean, I guess in a perfect world, this would be the worst issue of Spider-Man this week, but in this case, it's probably the best one, right? So, yeah. Now, here's the thing I have to ask Erik. I don't know if you talked about this, but what did you think of the art in this one?
Oh, I did like the art. I didn't talk about it. As you describe, now when listening to you guys talk about it, I do like the simplicity. It's very clear what's happening. There's not so much confusion. And in comparison to the other ones, the color on the other one was very, like you guys said, it was recolored or something like that. Yeah, like the one before.
Yeah, when they reprint them, they usually just recolor it with a computer. Yeah, but this issue is like the original newsprint with like the crappy dots and stuff. But it looks cool.
I like it. Yep, I definitely like it. It's, as you said, more clear and concise. There's not a lot of extra crap happening. The lines of action make sense. The extra little confusion dots, all that kind of stuff, that all makes sense with what's happening in the pictures, where some of the other stuff, it was like extra. Too much extra.
Yeah, and the thing is Jim Mooney. I love Jim Mooney. He's a legend, but the general public doesn't really care about Jim Mooney. But in the overall scheme of things, Erik Larsen went on to become a sort of millionaire, and no one cares who Jim Mooney is today. It's just unfortunate that you're right. It's important to tell a clear story. It's not just important to you use, when a guy breaks through a window to show an explosion effect, even though there's no explosion, like things like that. But at least when you're reading this issue, you can tell exactly what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
Jim Mooney for a while was an inker before this.
Yes, mostly yes.
That probably helps with the pencils too, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, he was a penciler, but then you're right. For Spider-Man, he's mainly an inker. I think he's been inking Spider-Man since the '60s. Before that, he was a penciler on Supergirl, as far as I know.
Yeah, for years on Amazing. I think he was teamed up with Romita Jr., right?
Or Senior, I think. Or maybe Junior too. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, from like the early '80s.
Yeah.
In Amazing, so yeah.
Yeah, you're right. And here's the thing too: is I used to associate Danny Fingeroth as being kind of a bad writer, but after reading, because he did a whole bunch of issues of Web of Spider-Man when it was first starting, and they were surprisingly good. Like when we were reviewing those issues, they were usually the best issues of that month. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking for more Danny Fingeroth, he had a very long run on Dazzler, so be sure to check that out. Which we've already reviewed, and we didn't like them, but.
Aw.
You win some, you lose some, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Mostly lose.
So I guess, unfortunately, even though this was the best one, we're kind of ending on a dour note because none of these issues were masterpieces. I apologize, Erica.
That's okay.
All right. Hopefully you'll be back again, or in less than 10 months.
Okay.
Cool.
Send me some stuff to read.
Sweet. I guarantee the next time you're on, there'll be no fill-ins. I can guarantee you that. Okay.
Well. Okay.
Yeah, can you?
Don't make promises we can't keep.
Trust me.
I can't wait.
Because I know what the future holds for Spider-Man. Yeah. No, it's true. Like, this isn't even bad. Yeah. Go ahead, Becca.
I guess there's less fill-ins as we get newer comics because fill-ins were less of a thing. Like, there's not fill-in issues typically now, right? There's not really. One-offs.
No, because now they're just late for 6 months. That's what happens now. Yeah.
Or they just start over. Or they just do a one-off. It's like.
But here's the thing. I do know, like, within about 6 months from this issue, like in Spider-Man time, they hire new writers, new artists, and there are there's almost no fill-ins for like 5 years. So that's why I say I can insist there'll be no fill-ins. But yeah. I don't want to brag about how much I know about Spider-Man. I've done that enough. Okay, so we'd like to thank Erica Rock for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
it was fun.
Well, next time we meet up for my next haircut, we'll talk tech. Okay. Some tech tips.
We'll just have to practice this.
There you go. And we want to thank. Yeah, no problem. It was awesome. It's always fun.
Even with fault.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's not my fault.
Exactly. And then we want to thank G.I. Jolie for joining us again.
Pick better, but no kidding. You're welcome. I love being here.
Woo! All right. And Bex Luther, thank you for joining us as well.
You're welcome. I was so busy, but I always make time for you guys, right?
Of
I got
course.
Just a bustling social schedule where I have to choose what I'm doing every week. And sometimes I don't always want to do Spider-Cast, but I'm here because of you guys. And instead of hanging out with my many friends that aren't you guys, because I have other ones.
You make us feel so wanted. This is good.
I have other friends. I just want you to know that I could spend time with. Definitely have friends.
Sure, you could.
I believe you.
You could.
Yep.
Okay. So be sure to join us on next week's episode when we review Web of Spider-Man 26, another fill-in by a writer I've never heard of. Yep. Amazing Spider-Man 288, Part 5, The Conclusion of the Gang War. And Peter Parker, The Spectacular Spider-Man, Part 2 of the Spider-Woman team-up, but without Jim Mooney, unfortunately, guys. Sorry. And we'll be welcoming back special guest Mike Dell from Flea Market Fantasy, so it should be an interesting one.
Ooh.
Yep. And
Hearing
Josh,
for hot takes only.
oh yes, and
Hottest
asking me
takes.
questions while I'm not even here and gone to the bathroom. All right. So
All right.
Josh, you can take it from
That
here.
was great. We also want to thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. It really helps when you leave us a review over on Apple Podcast, or you could drop us a line on Twitter at HCT Spidercast. Please let us know what you guys think about the comics we're reading and the podcast itself. We want to keep that comics conversation going.
That's right. So until next week, see you later.